You're listening to Stories for Monsters, Episode 5, The Baby Powder Plot.
I had a friend named Jules once. They hated their job. It wasn't only incredibly boring on a day-to-day basis, consisting only of stocking shelves, updating prices, mixing remedies, checking out customers. It wasn't even that the customers were the worst, and they were. On the good days, their mornings were filled with facetious well-wishes, hollow inquiries as to how they were doing. Usually Jules was an object of silent judgment, sometimes ridicule. People who came in automatically assumed Jules had given up. This was the best it would get for them. As if there were simply no dreams to be chased, no goals to meet. This would be their entire existence until someday Jules' own kid would take over. Those were normal things for any job. Jules understood that. He just hated the job itself. It was empty and unfulfilling. How could stocking shelves with tinctures and potions and groceries make anyone feel like they were chasing the lion of destiny? It wasn't something they enjoyed. Or even particularly cared about. They just took over the business after their father died. Like he did when he was young. Like his mother did before that, back and back. The town needed a store, and Jules' family helped fill that gap. It wasn't until after a few years in that Jules' outlook on the entire thing changed. It was cold, early morning. And the first guy to come into the store that day seemed lost. He wore baggy pants and a faded overlarge coat.
Can I help you find anything?
No, I'm good. Just looking, really.
Okay. Well, I'll be up here if you need anything.
And with that, Jules returned to reading the daily paper. There wasn't much going on. A circus was in town, just a small one. And a Freedy couple led the troupe. Typical. And there were a few clowns and a bear. That's when the second customer came in. He was exceptionally handsome. His skin was molten gold, and his horns stretched up through two holes punched through the brim of his leather cap before curling back, like those of a great ram. An azure feather shimmered in and out of existence on one side, casting an unearthly glow upon his otherwise brightly colored outfit. A sharp, red and black suit, with coattails that fluttered behind him, even after the door clicked shut. Jules squinted at the newcomer, then double-checked the morning paper again, then looked at the second customer more skeptically.
Can I help you?
You're that Ifrit Fintan, right? The one with the circus?
That's what the paper says. My friends just call me Finn, though.
He scratched his head and looked around for a moment.
Hey, I haven't been here before. Do you have any flour?
What kind are you looking for?
Crap, this isn't my specialty.
He fumbled through his pockets and produced a scrap of paper.
All-purpose. That's what it says.
Jules smiled.
All I need. It's in the second aisle on the right, past the snacks.
Cool, thanks.
With that, Fintan tipped his hat and strode to the flour. Jules smiled until no more customers were in their line of sight, then sighed and put down the paper. They weren't going to get any reading done so long as there were people to think about. Fortunately, that wasn't the only thing Jules had to do in the morning. Their father had been an insatiable caffeine addict, and had fostered a habit of brewing and selling coffee, just as the first customers came in. He'd found that the sound and smell of something fresh was more enticing than coffee that was already made, who knew how long before the doors were unlocked. Jules opened the gate by the counter, shutting and locking it carefully behind them, and headed straight back to grab a fresh bag of beans to grind. Past the candy and the snacks and the baking needs. Ifrit seemed a little puzzled, but had clearly found the correct item. He simply had to figure out which brand would be best suited to the price. Jules didn't make it a habit to give their opinions about products unless asked. Sometimes it affected the bottom line. Sometimes people blamed them if the product wasn't up to expectations. The other customer was perusing through the aisle with everything a new parent could need. That explained how tired and unruly he looked. Currently, he was examining different diaper brands, but when he saw Jules, he waved for help.
Oh, hey, is there something you need?
I was looking, and I see most of the baby stuff. Powder, diapers, bottles.
Yeah, we try to be a one-stop shop just in case someone's in a pinch.
Right. And that's what I thought. But I didn't see any formula. Are you out?
Oh,
Jules nodded.
yeah, we've actually got plenty. Here, I have to go past the formula anyway. Why don't you follow me?
They led the way to a glass cupboard with a lock and pointed at the selection.
It's a little modest. It covers most people's needs. We specially craft anything supplementary.
Thanks.
Said the customer, looking away and occupying himself with the selection.
I'll unlock whatever you need when I'm back.
Jules left him to it and went through a short hallway and a locked door. The back room was filled with ceiling-high shelves of exotic plants and the flits and whirs of small magical items. They walked to one shelf, adjacent a table and a kettle, and rapped the kettle 2.5 times to get the water started boiling before scooping coffee from a bag nearby into the grinder's hopper. By the time the beans worked through the burrs, the water was ready. Jules tapped it thrice to stop the boiling, then gathered the coarse grind and dropped it into a large glass beaker. A moment later, they flooded the carafe with half of the water and set a timer. It would only bloom for a few minutes, but Jules was sure they could at least unlock the cabinet for that new parent before the coffee was ready to be filled up the rest of the way. Maybe one of the customers would like a hot beverage, too. If they could afford to wait a moment. People usually love to have a fresh cup, especially this early. Especially in the winter. Jules left the press behind them and headed back to the front. But when they opened the door, a wave of hot air surged through the opening.
And where do you think you're going?
Just leave me alone. Please.
What an eschaton?
How about you take that out of your coat, set it on the counter, and then we can talk about me leaving you alone.
Jules peeked around the corner. It was a small shop, but between them and the front entrance, the baggy-clothed customer crouched defensively before Fintan. The Ifrit stood guard at the door, an apparition of flame hovering before him. Embers flowed between him and the conjuration, a well-chiseled figure of incandescent sapphire that cast long, groping shadows through the store. It was then that Jules saw the remains of the locked cabinet's glass doors shattered on the floor, glinting and abstracting the azure fire. Not much was missing, nothing of value besides the baby formula.
If I do what you say, will you let me go?
Finn paused and removed his hat, and rubbed his temples.
Tell you what, as long as you're not wasting my time, and this isn't something stupid or petty, I will.
Even the door?
Yeah, I'm sure the shopkeep isn't going to be happy about that. They can decide.
Fintan's eyes flickered, just a second to look at Jules. He didn't out them, just acknowledged the would-be spy. Jules blinked. They hadn't really considered being seen. This whole situation, not a robbery but a foiled one, had thoroughly removed from them the ability to think about any of their normal tasks or responsibilities in the moment. And of all people, not a city guard, but a chance do-gooder. A traveler from a circus they'd just read about this morning. So far, it was already the most interesting day of Jules' life. That was enough for Fintan. He would handle this until it was time to bring them into the fray, or until the whole thing had been resolved. The stranger gulped, but complied, first removing the heaviest item, the baby formula, before removing a small pack of diapers and a bottle. They stood there for a long moment. The apparition, the sorcerer, and the thief, examining the selection of items knowingly. In the end, Fintan groaned.
Did you really think I'd be mad at you for this?
He took a deep breath, and with a long sigh, the creature of flame and blue glass vanished. Finn dug out a pouch.
Here, I'll cover it.
Okay.
Jules quietly returned to the back, finished brewing the coffee, and grabbed a few old mugs before making their way back out. When they returned, the glass cabinet was as good as new, though the lock had shifted a couple inches from its original place. That was okay. It had always been more suited to their father's site before.
Everything all right up here?
Jules asked.
Yeah, it's all good.
Answered Fintan.
This young man forgot his wallet, so I figured I'd just pick up the bill. I've got enough spare cash to do that.
No.
The stranger started, then looked down, ashamed.
No. You don't need a lie from me.
He looked up at Jules then. The would-be thief turned confessor had almond eyes and skin like a cool lake. Fintan paused, but waited. If the stranger wanted to come clean, that was his choice. It was a good choice. Just unexpected.
I tried to steal those items, sir.
No one said anything. Instead, they listened and waited for him to continue.
It hasn't been easy for me to find work lately, but that doesn't make my responsibilities go away.
He looked at the loot on the counter.
I'm not in a position to ask for forgiveness or help. But I'm also not in a position that I can afford not to have these things.
Jules poured 3 mugs of coffee as the man spoke. Calcifer, he He said his name was Calcifer. Didn't complain about his lot in life as much as mourn the situation. Times had been difficult in Revelite. More outbursts of violence against mage folk happened every day. Somehow there was a growing sentiment that it was their fault that everything had gotten so sour between the people, the dragons, and the nation of Suvi. Despite the Dragshep games and the decreased dragon killings, the land had not completely healed. Instead, those who sought power seemed all the freer to do so. That made it hard for businesses, which made it harder to hire anyone at all, much less anyone who could become a potential target. Calcifer hadn't been able to find any work since the current lord of the township had been instated. First he lost his job, then his relationship, then his home. Now he just didn't want to lose his child.
And then what happened?
What?
To Calcifer. Did they help him?
They tried. They tried.
Stories for Monsters is a production of Rhetorical Answers. It is written, directed, produced, and primarily voiced by Fable. The voice of Jules is Dariane Davis. The voice of Calcifer is Kyle Newbridge. The voice of the little girl is Tiahna Bredenkamp. Original music by Rhetorical Answers. Original art by Kyle Newbridge. Special thanks to my patrons, and a big shout out to Adrian, Cindy, Darian, Jay, Marilyn, and Tiahna. This would be impossible without your support. Finally, thank you to my players for inspiring me to make such a fantastical world. If you like this and want more information, visit the website at rhetoricalanswers.net. And if you want to help support the show and the music and me making cool new things, please check out patreon.com/answers. Patrons get free stuff, surprises, early ad-free access, prompts, behind-the-scenes peeks at stuff. It is loads of fun. But most importantly, patrons are the reason I can even do this at all. And I hope that one day, with enough of you, I'll be able to tackle more ambitious projects and support myself doing this full time. Thanks for listening, and thanks for subscribing. Lates! Next time, the plot of the underground church continues. In Stories for Monsters, Episode 6, Crosses.